Jolanda Jones. Why are you running for the 18th district?
I'm running for the 18th district, one, because my constituents asked me to, but two, because it's personal. It's personal because my life and that of my family and my community is a story of when the government works and when the government doesn't work. For example, my dad enlisted in the Marines, went away to Vietnam, didn't come back the same. And when he came back, he was what we now know was PTSD, clinically depressed. The Veterans Administration didn't give him the health care that he needed. He also had an injury, so neither the physical nor the mental health care that he needed, nor did they give my family enough money. I remember until I was 18, my mother would get, as his living child, because he committed suicide, and I was with my father when he killed himself, which caused me to have a whole bunch of issues that I had to have a lot of counseling for. But my mom got like $31 a month for me. For a whole child was $31. When I turned 18, it went up. So from the time I was 18 to the time I was 21, because my benefits from him ended at 21, I got $60-something. What was $60-something a month going to do for me? So had the VA done what the VA was supposed to do, perhaps my father would still be alive. And I will also say my Uncle Rocky went to the Marines as well. And he came back and killed himself after his service. So my grandparents actually have lost 3 sons to suicide, but 2 to people who went to war and didn't come back the same. That's something that's personal for me. Something else I know is personal for me. My mother worked for the post office for 37 years. It was a good government job. So if you work at the government and they do what they're supposed to do, then you can have a good job and have good retirement. So another reason, and that's the post office. I am a product of good, well-funded public schools. All of my degrees are from public schools. With this attack on the Department of Education and the defunding of public schools, sending public money to private schools, the casualties of that are the very people that I represent and the very people who are my family. And so we need a well-funded public education, and that's very important. Apart from my sister, who is a physician, and we were talking about this last night, when they cut the Department of Education, they cut grant funding, they cut programming. So guess who's not getting into medical school anymore like they were before? Black and brown medical students. When we know with health disparities that black people rank at the bottom of almost everything. My niece is a casualty of that. She died of SID, sudden infant death syndrome, notwithstanding the fact that my sister, her mother, was an MBA from Baylor when she was born. I will also say this. As a kid who ate free and reduced lunch, I'm a product of, I get programming to help me eat, because it's hard to go to school and be hungry. So we need well-funded programs that provide after-school programming and meals for kids who have food insecurity. We need a good, strong federal government for that. But I could go on and on and on about why the government needs to work, but I will say it is personal to me, because when the government does what we pay it to do by way of our taxes, then we should be supported by the government. And finally, I'll say this. Cutting Social Security, kicking people off Medicaid and Medicare is just flat out wrong. Social Security is poor people's retirement. It's our pension. We pay into it. It's not a handout. It is what we paid into. It is what we deserve. So to cut Social Security so that billionaires can get tax breaks is un-American and it's theft. So I'm running for Texas 18 to go and fight Trump and all of his hate for everybody who's not rich and white and a billionaire, and who's not male, because he attacks women as well. And newsflash, I happen to be a woman.
You mentioned Medicaid, Medicare. That's one of really overall health care is what Democrats in Congress right now say is what they're pushing for, why we still have the government shut down. If you were in Congress today, what would you do?
I would absolutely be a part of, first of all, let me be clear. The government is shut down because Trump and the Republicans can't get their acts together because they have enough votes among themselves to run the government. But I absolutely would stand with the Democrats right now and not vote for the appropriation that he has as long as we are kicking people off of health care, Medicaid, and Medicare. So here's what's interesting. I used to be married to a guy who played professional basketball. We played overseas, or he played overseas in Europe, in Spain. In fact, my son was born in Malaga, Spain. The second I got off the plane, I was pregnant. I got free health care. I got free prenatal vitamins. I got free Lamaze classes. I had free doctor visits. No one was saying you don't have access to health care. And I was not seeking citizenship. I was literally with my then boyfriend, and I happened to be pregnant. When I went to the hospital, they gave me all the medical care that I needed. They weren't trying to kick me out of the hospital. And after my son was born, I got postnatal vitamins and I got doctor visits, all for free in Spain in 1991. There is no reason why the United States of America, the greatest country on earth, can't compete with Spain over 30 years ago. And that's because the healthcare system is totally based on pure profit. And you've got people determining what doctors do based on profit. And doctors aren't even allowed to be doctors. So that's what I have to say. We should have Medicare for all. We should have a single payer system because other countries that are a lot less wealthy than us are able to do it.
When you're out in the district, what are you hearing? What would you say are the top 3 things that you would want to address immediately if elected?
So in Texas 18, I hear a lot about how people can't afford food, like necessities. They can't afford affordable housing. They can't find good jobs. They can't afford the groceries. And that's important because I grew up with food insecurity. I grew up being an athlete, going out with my friends, all of whom who had money, and they would order at restaurants. I had no money. I was always hungry. And I was ashamed that I was always hungry. I would never allow anyone to come to our house because we might not have lights on. We might not have water. We never had food. We didn't have enough food for ourselves in our refrigerator, much less my friends. So when I would go to my friends' houses, they always had like chocolate ice cream and food. They had extra food. So I know what it's like to not have food. Sorry, I'm sort of going back. I used to eat free and reduced lunch. Free breakfast at CUNY Homes. We used to eat graham crackers and orange juice. And it was food. I mean, it wasn't the best food, but it was food. To this day, I don't eat graham crackers and orange juice because it reminds me of what it's like when you can't afford to eat. To this day, I save my meat till last because we didn't always have meat when I ate. And so I would always save the best for last. So I know what people are going through. Something else that people are very angry about, interestingly, is voting rights, right? I think that people finally appreciate that we better respect the right to vote since they tried to take it from us, which is why during the quorum break, I became the face of the quorum break. Why was that? Because I spoke truth to power. Because I refused to go back even when they sicked the FBI on us and the Texas Rangers, and they were staking out our homes, and they were fining us. We over $10,000, about $10,000 worth of fines. I was not going back to give them those maps because of the 5 seats that Trump and Abbott targeted. 4 of them were black. And they're trying to cut representation of people of color, and it's just wrong. So people are concerned about whether they are going to have the right to vote. That's important. So we have affordable health care, affordable housing, the cost of food, and voting rights. And then, of course, in my community, people are always concerned about police and whether our children are going to die from the police and whether there's going to be criminal justice reform.
You mentioned the quorum break,
yes.
And you mentioned the daily fees that were put against lawmakers as yourself who left the states. Where do things stand there? Is there still a fight that
I'm
you
fighting.
all are?
I'm literally fighting. Let me be clear. I'm fighting. I don't believe that those fees that they put with us are constitutional. We weren't given sufficient notice. And I will also say this. Look, I was elected to represent House District 147 by my constituents. When they heard about a quorum break might happen, my constituents said, you better leave, right? You better leave. You better stand up for our right to vote. And then when we were gone, when they heard that we might come back, my constituents said to me, you better stay. You better not come back. You better not let them steal our rights to elect who we want to elect. And so what the Texas House wants for me to listen to them and not the people that actually elected me, 1,000 times out of 1,000, I'm always 10 toes down with my constituents. So my constituents told me what they wanted me to do, and that's exactly what I did. And I was one of the few Democrats who did not come back. I did not participate in that kangaroo court redistricting fiasco they had on the House floor. I didn't go back. I didn't go back to that. I call it the plantation because they want for us to act like slaves and do like Trump says, or be like sheep and do like Trump says. No way was that ever going to happen, because I fought too long and too hard, and my community fought too long and too hard for me to come out of poverty and be a lawyer with a regular old public school education and be elected to represent people who grew up exactly like me, to go back and bow down to a freaking king. This is not a monarchy, and it's tyrannical. This is the United States of America, the greatest experiment for democracy, and I'd be damned if I allowed Donald Trump to take democracy without fighting him tooth and nail.
People say they want less fighting, like nationally. They want their lawmakers to work together and get things done for their constituents. If elected, how will you cross the aisle when necessary?
So let me be clear. My constituents said you better not capitulate to Donald Trump. So I don't know who you're talking to, but you asked me, what am I hearing in these streets? That's what I'm hearing in these streets. But I will say this. In the legislature, I got bills on the governor's desk, okay? Here's what people may not understand. In the Texas House, of which I am a member as we speak, there are 88 Republicans. There are 62 Democrats. If you understand basic math, you understand 62 never beats 88, not ever. And Republicans fall in line with what Donald Trump wants. In the Senate, there are 20 Republicans and there are 11 Democrats, right? And again, in basic math, 11 never beats 20. In order to pass anything out of the House, you've got to find 76 votes. We have 62. So for me to have gotten a bill to the governor's desk, I had to go find 14 Republicans to vote with Democrats for my bills. And then I had to go find 5 Republican senators to vote with Democrats to pass my bills. So as quiet as it's kept, I know how to work across the aisle, because voila, Governor Abbott actually signed 2 of my bills into law. And let me be clear, when I filed my bills, the Republicans were against all of them. You want to know why? Because they were Democrat bills. That's what they said. So I had to figure out something I had in common with people who represent everything that I'm not and everything that my constituents are not, and somehow convince them that what I filed is good for Texas. And that's exactly what I did. So I worked across the aisle. And so I know how to do that. But I will also tell you that I'm the only person in this race that has drafted a bill, that has filed a bill, that has actually whipped votes with people who hate my very existence to get them to understand that what I filed was best for Texas, and to get it signed into law in an overwhelmingly Republican body. So again, if I'm able to find something in common with my opponents, I will absolutely do it for what's best for Texas. But also know that if you think I'm just about to bend over because you asked me to bend over, oh no, I will fight you to the death. And I will say this again. In my family, almost all my uncles went to prison. My dad and 2 of his brothers committed suicide. My aunt was a victim of human trafficking and was murdered by her trafficker. My niece died of SIDS. My father committed suicide. My mother was a single parent, raising 5 kids. We got evicted all of the time. In 10th grade, I can remember standing outside, all 6 foot of me, in panties and a t-shirt, as our house burned down. Because we did not have electricity, we had candles, and the candles caught hold to the curtain. But you know what I learned from that experience is I was embarrassed to be standing as everything we owned was burned. My mother figured it out. My mother dropped me off at my best friend's house, dropped each one of my siblings off at our best friend's house, and we went to school the next day. I didn't have any clothes. I borrowed my friend Wendy Pena's clothes, and I was like 6 inches taller than her, so of course the pants I had on were crabby and high waters. But what I learned from that is bad things happen to you, you push through it, and you keep it moving. And the next day at school, people were like, Joe, do you smell smoke? And I was like, yeah. I was too embarrassed to tell them that our house burned down because we didn't have electricity. I told them that our house burned down because we had an electrical short. For some reason, that was easier to deal with. But let me be clear. I know how to go through difficult things and live through them. And not just live through them, but survive and to fight. And I have had more years than I can tell you of counseling to overcome my childhood and my father's suicide in my presence. That is why I know when the government works, a little girl like me can become a lawyer, be the first lawyer in her family. I'm very proud of that. My sister is a physician and has an MBA from Baylor University. Grew up in a single parent household. My baby sister is an accountant and a small business owner. I have a brother who was murdered. He was shot 5 times, twice in the head. The streets took him. But you know what? If you have people who are willing to fight for you, when you're most vulnerable, then you've got a shot. And that's what's important about this country. And that's what's different about me. My family are the residents of Texas 18. I understand their struggles. I understand living from paycheck to paycheck. And let me be clear, my mother didn't make it from paycheck to paycheck. Because if she made it from paycheck to paycheck, we would have never been evicted. Our lights would have never been turned off. Our water would have never been turned off. Our gas would have never been turned off. I'd have been able to have friends to wherever it is we lived and be able to feed them like when I went to their houses, they could feed us. But I also know that people helped us when we needed help. And there is nothing wrong with that. And so this whole notion that you are poor because it's your fault, and if you're where you are, it's where you are. No, it's not. People in Texas 18 have been denied resources. They have. And I'm here to fight for those resources because my family is Texas 18, and I will fight for your family as if you were my family. And I've got a granddaughter. And let me be clear, I'd be damned if I allow my granddaughter to grow up with less rights than I have.
Okay. Move on to a viewer question from Facebook. They said, without sounding prejudiced, the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee never had any meetings concerning her other constituents. Will you address the whole district?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Will you address the whole district?
Oh, absolutely, I'll address the whole district. If you look at how I have conducted myself as an elected official on city council and as a state rep and even as a school board member. On city council, I was known for my constituent services. I was an at-large council member. I had constituents in Spring Branch, most of whom were white, elderly people. And flooding was their problem because the city allowed some variances that allowed them to build that HEB off of, I think it's Bunker Hill or Bingle, somewhere over that way. Those people's homes never flooded. All of a sudden, after the city allowed developers to build there, you have people where your largest asset is your home. Now all of a sudden, your home is in a floodplain. It's your largest asset, and you can't move, you can't sell it, you can't get flood insurance. I represented them, and in fact, I had a woman who was a member of the Daughters of the Republic, which is Republican, come to City Hall and thank me because I was the only person who listened to her. When I was an at-large council member and they were messing with NASA. I had community meetings in Clear Lake. I represent the Heights now. I have meetings, I've had a meeting in the Heights. I represent Montrose. I help get money for Montrose. I represent 3rd Ward. I have community meetings there in 3rd Ward for a variety of reasons. I represent the University of Houston. They're terrified about having the police pull guns on them, which they've had. And they had, I'm actually about to have a town hall about these bodies that have been found in the bayou, because a number of them have been found in House District 147. So I'm having that on the University of Houston campus. Texas Southern students, I represent them as well, complained about things. I've had town hall meetings at Texas Southern. When I was on city council, Pleasantville was having issues. I had meetings at the Judson Robinson Community Center in Pleasantville. So I represent my clients. That's just my clients. I'm a lawyer. I'm sorry I misspoke. I represent my constituents. That's what I do. I meet my constituents where they are, and I deal with their issues.
Another viewer question, this one from TikTok. What are you going to do about homelessness in the area?
I'm glad you asked that question. So when I was on city council, I was the chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee. And so I started a long time ago working with St. John's downtown, because they have one of the preeminent homelessness outreach, or they're now calling it unhoused. When I was on city council, they called it homelessness. So I believe in permanent supportive housing. I believe that we need to have resources, social services for people who are homeless. So for example, I made sure when I was chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee to make sure grants were available to St. John's downtown for washers and dryers, because homeless people don't have a place to wash their clothes. If they're trying to get a job, you can't wear dirty clothes. We got them money so that they could have more beds. That's important. When we have people who are unhoused, I've worked with people who have HIV, AIDS, who don't have places to stay. What do? We made sure we had, if we didn't have in-house social services available for all the needs of people who are unhoused, then the people would come, those services would come once a week. So people could get resume training, so people could get clothes, so people could brush up and get GEDs if they didn't have a GED. So I understand, and also it's really important that a lot of people who are unhoused or homeless, if you want to call it, because of mental illness. So I fought as a state rep to expand Medicaid so that people could have access to affordable health care and mental health care. One of the problems that's going on right now, and I learned this from my sister, as I said, who's a physician, and she's the chief medical officer over some FQHCs, which are federally qualified health clinics. They no longer are doing telehealth for mental health. That is a problem. It is a huge problem, because people are committing suicide at higher rates. And as a kid whose dad blew his brains out, I understand what it's like to be desperate and not have anybody to speak with. And so it is a shame that they have cut back on these government services under Trump, because it literally means people will die.
So is your plan to then bring additional services, federal dollars in, open up buildings? So how do you address it?
So first of all, I will work with senior members of Congress who I've already developed relationships with, who are on the Appropriations Committee, and Ways and Means to bring money to Texas 18 for all the things that I mentioned, for having more services, for more access to affordable health care and mental health care, for buildings that will house the homeless until they're able to get jobs and move into a place of their own. So yes, all of those things.
Ray, anything you can think of?
I mean, when you speak, you're very passionate. How does that drive you every day, and how does that help you resonate with the people that you will be representing?
Look, let me be clear. I learned a long time ago, either you're going to do something 100% or you ain't going to do it at all. And let me be clear, I spoke Ebonics on purpose because I'm making a point. As a kid whose father committed suicide, clearly suicide is something that permeated my thoughts. When life got difficult, I tried to kill myself. on more than one occasion. I'm very thankful that it's very hard to kill yourself if all you have in your house is aspirin. Okay? I'm very thankful that we didn't have a gun in the house, because my dad's way that he killed himself was with a gun. My Uncle Rocky killed himself with a gun. My Uncle Ricky killed himself with a gun. And so it is important that people have access to people and services that can help them. So sometime at my most desperate moments, I would call my grandmother, and she would be there for me. If it weren't for my grandmother, I would be dead for sure. Sometimes when I didn't have food and I had a track meet, my coach, Coach Fawcett, he and his wife would allow me to come to their home and I would eat. They didn't know I was starving. I was too embarrassed to tell anybody. But there were people there for me. And I know that there are people who don't have stuff. I know there are people who are desperate, like my uncles, who they didn't have somebody to call. And so I am passionate, unapologetically, to fight for people who are the most overlooked, the least, the last, the lost. And I learned also a long time ago that whatever it is you're doing, you better be passionate about it, because then it's a calling and it's not a job.
In a matter of weeks, November 1st, their SNAP benefits will change. In the 18th district, a lot of people here require or need these benefits. With the work requirement changes coming November 1st, what would you do, if anything, or how do you address this?
So first of all, there are 435 people in the House, and there are people in Congress. So one person can't do anything. So if somebody comes and says, I'm going to do this, then they don't know where we're going. What I will do is I will support any legislation that reverses this work requirement to get SNAP, is what I would do. I also obviously would work to get appropriations to Texas 18 so that we could try to compensate for people not having SNAP. But right now, the best thing we can do is take the House back in 2026, which I'm going to work to do. I'm going to work to get Democrats elected, because the one thing I know is that Democrats aren't terrified of Trump, and they're not bending the knee and voting against their constituents' interests. Because at the end of the day, being able to have food in your belly is important to being successful. At the end of the day, having affordable housing is very important to you having a successful life. That's just very important. At the end of the day, it is important to be healthy. Sick kids miss school. Sick kids don't make as much, don't learn as much. They don't do as well. Sick grown-ups don't go to work as much. They can't provide for their families. So providing affordable health care is important as well. These are basic human rights. Going to having good public schools is important. So there are all these things. It's not just one thing that we have to fight to get back. And it should not be against the law to be black. It should not be against the law to be a woman. It should not be against the law to be diverse, for people to be equitable with you. It should not be against the law. And people are literally being targeted for who they are born into. And that is wrong. And I have got to fight Trump and all the people that are his sycophants. And I've got to help regular people be able to inherit in America like I inherited. Because right now, we've got the government at war with its people. And something else I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed, if you look on social media, all the people that are being detained by ICE, arrested illegally, U.S. citizens, they're all people of color. So it is an attack on people of color in this country. It is an attack on immigrants. We haven't talked about that. And let me be clear, I was married to a guy from Colombia. My children are half Colombian. My stepchildren are Colombian citizens. This country was founded on immigration. How dare we close the borders to them? How dare we not have a path to citizenship that doesn't take 7 to 10 years? How dare we? And so somebody needs to fight for all of these things, and it's super important. And how dare me not to have the right to control my body and to control the health care of my children? You can't do that. And so, yes, I'm passionate, I'm disappointed, and I'm really angry. And Americans are angry. They're angry, at least in my district. That's what they're telling me. Fight back, Jolanda. Fight back. When are people going to be brave enough to fight Trump? Well, let me be clear. I ain't never been scared.
So we are in the 18th district, or you're running for the 18th district. The big elephant in the room with redistricting is come March, the primaries for the midterm. Question is, will Congressman Al Green run? If elected, do you intend to run for re-election in the 18th?
So let me be clear. I am focusing on the special election right now. Right now, Texas 18 does not have a congressperson. The big ugly bill passed by 1 vote. Texas 18 did not have a vote. If I were in Congress, I'd have voted against it. It's exactly what I would have done. And it would have failed. And life wouldn't be as hard for Americans and people in Texas 18 as it is. So I'm running so that Texas 18 has representation. And when March gets here, I'll deal with that. So I'm worried about the special election. That is very important because Congressman Turner would have been elected until the end of 2026. It's not even the end of 2025. So I am running for Texas 18, and I hope to win Texas 18. All the polls have me leading, including polls from my opponents. So, and I believe it's because literally and figuratively, I have a track record. I won 4 United States championships. I know how to win. I was an All-American in basketball. I know how to be a team player. And that's exactly what it's going to take for the Democrats to take back the House in 2026. And that's exactly what it's going to take for me to be elected by the constituents of Texas 18. Because come rain or shine, the people in Texas 18 understand that I will fight even when it's not popular to do. And I will also say I'm the only person in this race who served and completed more than 1 term of elected office. And I'm the only person in this race who has won 11 times in Texas 18. My opponents combined have won a whopping 3 times. And I would respectfully submit to you that that track record shows that despite what anybody says, the constituents of Texas 18 understand that I will fight for them unequivocally, unapologetically, and with passion and vigor and smarts, because I'm a 30-year trial lawyer. And the difference between being a finance lawyer, where you're dealing with numbers, that ain't got nothing to do with poor people. The difference in being an attorney who manages law firms who fight for the county, that's managerial. When you're a solo practitioner lawyer like I am, a person with a problem walks into my office, I got to figure out what their problem is, and then I go to court for them. And I whoop people in court on a daily for my clients. And I was just at the CBC, was it 3 weeks ago? And I had a woman come up to me and say, "You represented my nephew." I said, "I did." She said, "Yes." She told me his name. I said, "Yeah, I just represented him." She said, "Yeah, you got him off. They gave him a false charge and you got him off." I said, "I sure did." So I have to fight for my clients. I don't pass it off to other law firms, and I'm not in a building in a tower with numbers, looking at numbers. I'm dealing with regular people's problems, and I help when people oppress them or try to oppress them, whether it's the government, whether it's their boyfriend, their girlfriend, their wife, whether it's in a car wreck. I fight for the little guy. And right now under Donald Trump, we're all little guys and girls, if you hadn't figured it out, and you want somebody that's used to fighting for the little guy and the little girl.
As we wrap it up, it's a question I've been asking all the candidates. What's a random fact people don't know about you? It's a question you're probably not used to getting.
What's a random fact that people don't like, that people don't know about me? A random fact that people don't know about me. So I'm PADI certified to scuba dive. I love beaches. I've literally never seen a more brilliant color above water than under the water. And so I call myself a black mermaid. And when I was on Survivor, I actually won a challenge, an immunity challenge, that required us to swim about a half a mile. And I won the immunity challenge because I learned how to swim at public parks, at McGregor Park and at Emancipation Park. This little black girl learned how to swim. I love to swim. I love beaches. And when this race is over, I'm gonna go take me a vacation at some beautiful beach in some faraway place.
Jolanda Jones, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.